I'm going to do something I didn't think I'd ever do. Go back to an earlier review. In this case, Dragon Power and the Famicom game that it derived from, Dragon Ball Shenlong Nunazo. This isn't like Bucky O'Hare where the muddy garbage audio quality was the issue. For Dragon Power, with the exception of some excess camera mic hiss, the quality's fine. My reason for wanting to enter Dragon Ball territory again is due to dissatisfaction with a certain aspect of the original video, but not one that is readily apparent from an outside perspective. Let me explain. I've actually gotten more hardcore into Dragon Ball since I put out the first two videos. The majority of my dwindling DVD collection is Dragon Ball related, the showcase of which being my most recent purchase, the legendary Dragon Box sets. I've even started to read the Viz translations of the manga, which maintains the traditional Japanese page and panel flow from right to left. It's very enriching, and it makes me feel like I'm getting the most authentic Dragon Ball experience. The truth is, though I've known about Dragon Ball for many years, I only became a fan fairly recently. At the time I produced the original videos, I'd only watched the Funimation dubs of the series, and that was the extent of my knowledge base. Since then, I've gotten heavily into the original Japanese version of the series, and it didn't take long after doing so to see that Funimation, and before them Ocean, changed a number of things when they westernized Toriyama-san's stories. As a result of this, both of my earlier videos reflect the changes used in the Americanized version of the series, which do not always stick with the original intentions of the source material, and that is the reason why you're watching this right now. While I still enjoy the Funimation dub, it's hard for me to watch it now that I've made the transition to the original version. That's why I wanted to make another video that reflects my new knowledge as a Dragon Ball fanatic and showcase the Japanese terms. So that means no more Kamehameha Wave or Flying Nimbus. My initial intention was to create what would be considered the Kai version of the Dragon Power review, meaning I would edit out the filler and I would replace the Funimation terms and pronunciations with Japanese faithful ones. So it would have been the same video with a twist. Here's a taste of what that would have looked like. Help Umigame find his way back to Roshi the White shows Nora acting like the bipolar, gun-toting lunch. I think I'd go Ozaru on them. Not very interesting to watch, is it? Ultimately, I decided to begin this new review with an updated analysis of the game that started it off. These two titles were published by Bandai and released in 1986 and 87 respectively. The actual Dragon Ball game retained the names and looks of characters from the manga and anime, while the latter really did a hatchet job in importing it to the US. Kame Sennin looks more like a wizard than the Turtle Hermit Master. Son Goku, while retaining the Orange Gi and Saiyajin tail, looks less like the Planet Vegeta-born child sent to Earth to destroy humanity, and more like a Cabbage Patch doll, and looks like the love child of Alfred E. Newman and Moe from the Three Stooges. And let's not forget Nora, Pudgy, Lancer. In replaying both these games to get reacquainted with them for this re-review, I was strongly reminded of two major flaws, one of which I somehow praised in the first video. Call me a flip-flopper, but I'm changing my stance on the music. While it doesn't capture the essence of Toriyama, the music is fast-paced and appropriate for a martial arts-based action title. I must have been under the influence when I wrote the initial review, because the music is not good at all. It is far too repetitive, and while it isn't as bad as the Fist of the North Star music, it still gets grating after a while. The 8-bit rendition of Makafushigi Odd Adventure on the title screen of Shenlong Nunazo is still amazing, but everything else is unfortunately the same. Both Dragon Ball and Z had plenty of fantastic energy-filled pieces by Shunsuke Kikuchi. Couldn't they have interpreted them in 8-bit form as well? If they had, it certainly would have helped compensate for the game's biggest and most unforgiving flaw, the decreasing health bar. Again, I get it. Son Goku's greatest adversary is and will always be his stomach, and I appreciate the inclusion of this weakness in the game, but I also hate it with a passion! I know it most likely wouldn't be a fun or fulfilling experience, but I want to make progress. I want to get to the end. I've read that the later part of the game involves the Tenkaichi Budokai and boss fights with Kuririn and Gyumao, and I want to see that. But that damn decreasing health bar and lack of Hoi Poi capsules completely ruin any chance that will ever happen. To finally close the book on Dragon Power, aka Shenlong Nunazo, the game, as much as I want to like it, just isn't good. I could excuse Dragon Power as it's a chopped up reinterpretation with very little to do with the manga, but I hold Shenlong Nunazo up to a higher standard, and it sorely disappoints on all levels. Fear not, there are good games based on Dragon Ball franchises, and I'm going to cover one great game and one pretty good one. Mystery game number 1. Dragon Ball GT Transformation for the Game Boy Advance is based on the non-canon anime-only series. I see so much hate towards GT Online, and I just don't get it. Yeah, the show isn't great, Toriyama had minimal involvement with it, and they pretty much depowered Son Goku, but I like it. I like that it goes back to the less serious tone, with an emphasis on adventure like the original series, while still retaining plenty of action-packed fights. I'll grant you that it is my least favorite of the anime, but it's still an enjoyable watch. Wait, single player and story mode? Shouldn't they be one and the same? The answer is they pretty much are, as both modes share the same levels. The difference is that single player mode has none of the cutscenes, and gives the option of playing with an expanded roster of characters. GT the series details the adventures of Goku, Trunks, and Pan across the galaxy in search of the Black Star Dragon Balls, and Transformation stays accurate to the events of most of the sagas. In the story mode, you can cycle through the trio with the select button on the handheld and X or Y when playing on the Game Boy player. Unfortunately, you can't switch on the fly, and if the action gets too intense, a character low on health is most likely going to die. This is only temporary though, as picking up green pear-looking things, which I believe are supposed to be senzu, resurrects any fallen comrades, just like the show. Speaking of action, this game is steeped firmly in the Streets of Rage or Final Fight beat-em-up style, so I give it points for that. The control scheme is very standard, A jumps and B attacks. A dashing attack can be performed by pressing a direction twice and B, and special moves are accomplished by pressing A and B simultaneously. Where this game differs from typical brawlers is in the implementation of Ki Blast. Pressing R in quick succession shoots out a volley of energy blasts, but holding R and then pressing B at the apex of the charge produces a more powerful Ki Blast. Overusing these attacks will deplete the green energy meter, but holding the L button will produce a yellow Cyanogen aura around the character, in the process filling up the bar. When you think of Ki, attacks like the Makanko Sappo, Kienzan, and of course the Kamehameha come to mind, but for this game, throw all that out the window. The Charge Ki Blast is the only typical Dragon Ball move included. Oh, and forget about going Super Saiyajin. The fight against Baby at the end of the game as SSJ4 Goku is the only Super Saiyajin level playable during the course of story mode. At the least, they could have included a bar like the Power Rangers movie games, where you can power up when the gauge is filled, but I guess they decided to just omit the most trademark element of the series. Disappointed! Enough about the negative though, let's focus on the positive! As mentioned before, you can play as all 3 main characters, all depicted excellently from the series, for the most part, and Gil even makes an appearance mirroring Pan's every move. The Funimation cast is featured, including Sean Schemmel, Stephanie Nadolny, Eric Vale, and the man himself, Christopher Sabat, and the quality is surprisingly good. While I prefer the Japanese cast, this is a nice addition that helps reduce monotony. It would have been nice to have these voices present during the cutscenes, but I guess the fact that they're included at all should be applauded. One thing I don't like about those cutscenes are the way the characters are depicted. While the art style is ripped directly from the anime, they only used one drawing per character. This means that whether they're celebrating the gathering of the Dragon Balls or are in the clutches of the evil Dr. Mew, they always look pissed. When even lighthearted Son Goku looks like he hates the world, you know you have a problem. This game really does stick very well to the events of the anime, moving from Omega to Lewd and all of the other important settings, but condenses it down, removing some of the filler material, fortunately including the Para Para brothers, perhaps one of the biggest WTF moments in all of Dragon Ball. As mentioned before, the conclusion takes place on the new Sufurajin planet and the fight with Baby. This isn't the end of the anime though, which included the Super 17 and Shadow Dragon sagas, so the ending is a cliffhanger. A sequel to Transformation was planned to be released in 2006, but being that the game, nor the series it was based on, did very well in America, the title was axed. Dragon Ball GT Transformation is a pretty good brawler. If it had been released on the PlayStation 2 or GameCube, I might not have been as forgiving of its flaws, but for a handheld beat 'em up, it's not bad. This game gets a passing grade from me, but just barely, so I can't really recommend picking this one up. Like I mentioned earlier, it's pretty good, but far from great. Speaking of great, it's time for Mystery Game number 2. Dragon Ball Advanced Adventure, also for the Game Boy Advance. This was recommended to me by 123Gur, one of my subscribers, who said it would make up for the mediocre Famicom game I previously covered. He wasn't kidding. Advanced Adventure is a brawler just like Transformation, but it's so much better in every way. Credit for this improvement most likely belongs with Dimps, the developer of this title. Dimps is well known for their work on the PlayStation 2 Budokai games, which are well known and mostly unanimously loved by fighting and Dragon Ball fans. Advanced Adventure follows Son Goku from his meeting with Bulma that sets him out on his quest, to his interactions with Emperor Pilaf, the Red Ribbon Army, and beyond. This is truly a game worthy of the Dragon Ball name. Son Goku looks awesome, and his main method of attacks, besides his fists and feet, is the trusted Nyoibo, and it works fantastically. It can deflect gunfire and other projectiles, and it can be powered up to increase the attack range. Goku can extend the Nyoibo at marked spots to reach higher elevations, and a Super Nyoibo attack is performed with the L button, but this drains from the meter that controls the power of the Kamehameha. That's right, this game, unlike Transformation, has the Kamehameha, but like the Nyoibo, it too needs to be powered up. I guess this is to show that Goku has not yet mastered the technique, but for some reason, the attack is initially red, not the traditional blue hue, present only when the beam is fully powered up. I've never seen a red Kamehameha before. Not even the Kaioken Kamehameha during the Saiyan saga was red. You might think that I'm nitpicking, but let me tell you, I haven't even begun to pick nits. Don't get me wrong, I love this game, and it may be the best game based on the original series, but there are a number of flaws. Would you believe that Transformation actually does a better job of sticking to the source than Advanced Adventure? It's true. The overall story arc is depicted faithfully, but there are a lot of little details that are changed or left out that really annoy me. I certainly understand why they didn't include Muten Roshi asking for a peek at Bulma's panties, and I can even let go of the fact that they have Kame-Sennin teach Son Goku the Kamehameha, seeing as it's in the context of showing the player how to perform it in-game. But Goku beating Jackie Chun and Tenshin Han in the 21st and 22nd Tenkaichi Budokais? What kind of revisionist history is this? Goku never fought Chaozu. How come Goku still has his tail after the encounter with Grandpa Gohan? Not to mention all of the typos and less than faithful, yet funny, dialogue lines in the cutscenes. Regardless of these inaccuracies, I love this game! How could you hate a game that has several stages where Goku rides the iconic Kinto-Un? The Kinto-Un! And in spite of my issues with the outcome of the fights at the Tenkaichi Budokais, the matches are depicted extraordinarily well, with charging, blocking, and pummeling foes into the sky. While fine details of the story may be incorrect, the grand scope of the tale is depicted in a respectable manner. From Gyumao to Murasaki to Tao Pai Pai, All are present and accounted for. Hard as it may be to believe, Yamcha is the hardest boss in the game, no contest. It's funny that Yamcha is depicted as tougher in the games than he actually is in the manga and anime. Story aside, let's get to what matters most, gameplay and control, and both are top-notch in Advanced Adventure. Goku here has great control over the Kamehameha as he does in the series, meaning ki for the blast can be gathered while moving around or even attacking. Goku can get out of sticky situations with ease by agilely jumping from danger's path or bouncing off walls to ascend out of reach platforms. There are some very difficult parts, and Muscle Tower in particular is an endurance test, but with the right power-ups and determination, Advanced Adventure can be beaten in a few hours. Like Transformation, Advanced Adventure doesn't end where the anime does, but concludes with the fight against Piccolo Daimao, not the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai. Even when the story mode is finished, there are still more options to explore. There's the one-on-one mode with the option of playing as Goku, Kuririn, Ten Shinhan, Grandpa Gohan, Tao Pai Pai, and Jackie Chun in the Tenkaichi Budokai playstyle. But the coolest extra feature is the option to replay the story mode, minus the cutscenes, as Kuririn. Kuririn even gains access to a black Kintoun, since he can't fly the original one. Kuririn is pretty badass. He's even tougher than Goku at the end of the story mode. He can jump higher, his punches and kicks deal more damage, and he has the fully charged up Kamehameha from the start. Mondo cool indeed. Looking past all of my fanboy whining, Dragon Ball Advanced Adventure is one of the best Dragon Ball based games I've ever played. The action is fast and furious, the story is mostly well detailed, the voice samples from the Funimation cast is superb, and I give Atari props for keeping Goku punching through Piccolo Daimao in the ending uncensored. Whether soaring for the sky on the Kintoun or beating bosses with the Nyoibo, this game lived up to my high expectations and far surpassed them. I can't recommend this enough. If you're looking for the ultimate Dragon Ball experience in a video game, this is it. In short, Advanced Adventure is awesome, Dragon Ball in Japanese is amazing, now it's time to cue the Kuririn Own montage!
Hehe, ここで俺の出番ってわけね。悟空、ここは俺に任せろ。やめろ。おめえにかなう相手じゃ。なんで俺だけこうなるの。やぶれかぶれだ。なんで俺だけ。
Oh, Kuririn. He may have been no more than a glorified punching bag for most of Z, but at least he got 18 in the end. Oh, and he kicks ass in this game! Go Kuririn!
Yes, 沈めてた炎を静けさを引き裂いて揺り起こすのはどいつだ Yes, 時が流れても Yes, 夢が溢れても悲しみがある限り